What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. We're here live in Miami at the GoBundance Global Conference, and I've got a GoBundance member next to me, Mike DeHaan. He's a real estate investor. He is a jump without a plan entrepreneur. He's out of Spokane, Washington. Don't call it Spokane. I don't know who the hell called. He gave me this warning before. Don't call it Spokane. I'm like, who calls it Spokane? But we'll explore that, I guess. A little bit.
Well, it's everyone. You know, Gonzaga University's there. They have a pretty decent basketball team. So every year in March Madness, it's all over ESPN. And you know, even though they've been in the tournament for 15 years now, they still say it wrong every single time.
Spokane.
Yeah.
Also the host of the Collecting Keys podcast. So Mike, welcome.
Yeah. Thank you, Jamie.
Love it. Yeah. You might hear some background noise in here, and I apologize. We're in a live podcast room. If you're watching on video, there's other podcasts happening over there. So apologize for any background noise, but this is live TV, live podcasting. So Mike, let's go back a little bit. So you're in Spokane today. That's not where you started.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit of your backstory, where you're from, and take us through now.
Yeah, so I grew up out in Bozeman, Montana. So, you know, sort of a rural area. Bozeman's super popular and trendy these days, but back when I was growing up there, it was a farm town. Like I remember when the first department store came there, which wasn't that long ago. I mean, I was 10, and now, I'm 31, and now it's a sort of a mecca where tons of people go to buy their large vacation homes and go skiing, go fishing, do all that sort of stuff. So grew up there, went through high school, sort of traditional path. Went to Gonzaga University in Spokane, got electrical engineering degree, sort of, struggled through school, wasn't really my thing, but I went through kind of with a mindset that when I graduated and I went and got a job that, I would enjoy life more, right? I'll start making money. That would be cool. Parents are super proud. So go through, jump right into the workforce. I graduated in 2013. So it was kind of after the recession had really gone through. So getting jobs was so easy. Yeah. Especially as an engineer, I had picked the litter when it came to jobs. I decided to move out to the Seattle side. Started working at a consulting company. Was there for about a couple of years. Didn't really like it. I decided to seek a job that was more of like a bucket list job or like a dream job for a lot of people. So I started looking at places like Amazon, Boeing, larger companies that people sort of seek from all over the world. I ended up getting a job at Boeing, which was realistically impossible to do. I got very lucky with just the whole process. Basically, they told me that there were 450 applicants for the job. They interviewed 50 and they hired 3. And I was one of the ones that got hired. Wow. So something that a lot of people were seeking, right? And I will always remember the first day that I walked into that Boeing building. I was so excited. I walk in, I get to my desk, I see the cubicle jungle, the fluorescent lights, and I was like, damn it.
Depressed.
I made a horrible mistake.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
So instantly I realized that I had, I was in a place that I really shouldn't be, but I had the golden handcuffs at that point. I was making really good money. I was 26. My total compensation package was about $120,000 a year. And I mean, that was a lot of money. Yeah. You can do a lot of stuff with that back then. So sort of was struggling through it, was dealing with it. And then the real turning point for me actually was in 2016, my father had a stroke. And it was kind of like a freak thing. He was always in really good health. He had a hemorrhagic stroke and had a brain bleed and spent 6 weeks in the ICU. And during that time, me and my wife, we actually traveled down and lived out of the hospital with my mom. And it gave me a lot of time to sort of reflect on life and what I want that to look like. But the real kicker was everyone, my boss, everyone knew the whole life situation, how close I was to my family. And then for the next 6 weeks, Boeing proceeded to call me every single day and basically said, hey, what the hell are you doing? Why aren't you at work?
No kidding.
Right. And they, threatened me with disciplinary action and to let me go and all this sort of stuff because I was there. And I basically said, screw you, I don't care. So anyway, that whole situation, he had a very long recovery. He's doing great now.
I was going to ask. Okay.
Yeah, so he's doing very well now. Like you honestly never know. But he had to have brain surgery, out of all this sort of stuff. Put me into a spiraled state of depression that I was in for probably about the next 2 years. In that period of time, I got married. Even though my wife admitted that at one point she was debating not getting married because of the state that I was in.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And then, took a different job, moved back to Spokane to work at a local utility over there. And then after a year of that, it was, my 4th job at that point. And 5 years as an engineer, I decided this isn't for me. And in January of 2018, I just jumped and just quit and just said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll figure it out.
Wow.
And I'd been able to make good money for those couple of years. So I had some runway and I basically just left and decided I was going to go and find myself. So,
how much runway? I'm curious.
So if we had no income, probably about 5 months, 6 months.
Yeah.
I did have a backstop of like a 401k that I'd built up that was pretty significant.
Sure.
If I needed to pull on that, but I would recognize the fees. But I had cash savings about 5 or 6 months, and then my wife had a job that we were able to live off of for the most part. So that made it a little bit easier.
Wow. So you leave. What's the first thing you do?
So my original intention when I left, I've always been into sports and fitness, and I used to moonlight as like a weightlifting coach. So my original thing was, I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to go and be a physical therapist. I want to help people learn how to be healthier. So I left, started school to do my prereqs to go to PT school. Worked in a PT clinic, which was part of the process, for about a month, and was like, F this, I'm not doing this. So I completely just shot it.
Yeah.
And then so after that, we were like, I was kind of lost, and I was like, I just need to sort of get out of my element. So my wife, we decided to pull on our savings and go to New Zealand and do probably the most financially irresponsible thing at the time, which is go travel around New Zealand for a month. But that whole trip, I have family down there. I got to like see different sort of like lifestyle and culture that's still Western. But have you ever spent any time in New Zealand or around New Zealand people?
Been. Yeah.
They have a very different view, just like on the world, and on life and things like that. And even if they live kind of humbly, a lot of them have a view that there's just like more out there to experience and explore.
Sure.
And that sort of motivated me to get into entrepreneurship so I could have that freedom. And I could go and do more with my life than just be focused on work, which is kind of the traditional path.
Was there any question for you? I mean, you said it's a financially irresponsible thing. I guess that's debatable. But when you made the decision, was there any sort of like, we're going to do this. I don't know that we should, but or was it like, okay, I guess we will. I'm just kind of curious. I feel like the greatest things in life happen when you follow something that feels authentic, even if it doesn't seem practical. Was that where you were, or was it like, I wasn't going to do this, and thank God, kicking and screaming, I was dragged to it? I'm curious. Was it an authentic thing, or was it a mistake?
It was purely authentic. And I've always kind of been someone that follows that authentic nature, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah.
So like when we made that decision, we did have the perfect excuse to go because I have family down there. Someone's getting married. And we're like, cool, we'll just like go there and we'll make a whole thing of it.
Yeah.
Right. But it was never really like a question or a concern. And like the view that I always had was, worst case scenario, I can go back to being an engineer if I need to. I have a valuable degree. I know I'm hireable. And that was the last thing I ever wanted to do. But I did have that as a backstop because I knew that was a possibility.
Yeah.
And then also as well, I guess the one bit of comfort I did have is I've always sort of come from like a hustle mindset where I'll just like figure things out.
Yeah.
Regardless of what happens. So like even when, I wasn't making any money for that first period of time, I was still working as a coach. I was driving for Uber. I was doing whatever I could to, taking odd jobs from people. Like somebody would post on Facebook, like, hey, I need $50. Someone can help me move a fridge. They're looking for like a high schooler. And enrolls in this 30-year-old guy that's like, I want $50. I'll help you move the fridge.
Sure, right.
Like whatever it was,
Whatever
I would just
takes.
do anything to just scrape it by.
Did you have that as a kid? As you look back now? So I love the story of, you said a couple of things that resonated with me because I didn't realize it. I wasn't okay with it until recently. It was like I hated school. Yeah. I thought it was pointless. My objective was to get through. Like I may have said this before on this show, but I never understood when people would say to me like, you got a C-. I'm like, yeah, which means I passed. Yeah. I passed something that you said I needed to in order for me to go through whatever this is. I don't really care what my grade is. I'm never going to use English literature in my life ever. So I really didn't care. But back then I was like, oh my God, I'm a bad person. That was what I was conditioned to be. But it never resonated with me. So I love that. And then you talk about walking in to cubicle. What'd you call it? The cubicle?
The cubicle farm.
Cubicle
the fluorescent
farm.
lights. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's the worst.
Lights.
Yeah.
And it is, man. It's sad, right? When you think about it, for us at least, it's sad. That's sad for everybody. But did you have entrepreneurial tendencies as a kid? If you go back, did you start the landscaping company and hire a bunch of people like some folks did? Did you display any of this, or was it later in life?
So I did in like a different fashion, I like not in like a practical way that it was actually viable for making money. So growing up, I was very sort of introverted. I didn't have a lot of friends. I spent a lot of time playing online video games.
Yeah.
And I would do things in those that were entrepreneurial. Like I would find like the hack that I could generate more gold. And so I would like set up systems to do that.
Yeah.
Right. But I wish I had done it, like go start the landscape company. I could have gotten something tangible from it. And instead I created all this internet money that's not worth anything.
But you were it's like paper trading.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much.
You figured out a way.
Yeah.
We had my parents used to buy VHS videos. So are you even VHS?
Yeah.
It was a DVD when you were growing up.
Oh, no, I have VHS.
A little bit of VHS.
Yeah.
So we had like this wall of VHS videos. And I remember I also grew up in a very rules-centric household. Like, there's only certain things you can and can't do. But I remember thinking, because my friends would want to watch these videos, like, I should rent these. I could rent them for $1 or $2 or whatever. And my father's like, well, if you do that, you have to pay royalties to the whoever creates the videos, the what are they called? The studios. You have to pay. I'm like, okay. Like, back in your box, right? Like, don't do that. But it's funny you say that. Like, nothing ever came of entrepreneurial endeavors I had, but I had the mindset. I look back and I think of like that and some other things where I had the mindset to do it, but then it was sort of, you got to play by these certain rules. So don't, right?
Yeah.
So don't.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So you quit your job, you go to New Zealand, it unlocks you. Tell me from there, what happens next?
Yeah. So, I got really into basically the concept of financial freedom. I read the 4-Hour Work Week. That's kind of the book that I attribute to changing my mindset. It's
a big book. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that sort of got me thinking and opened my eyes. And I just started dabbling in different things. The biggest thing I was looking at was what would be a scalable business. What would be something that I could do location independent and I could travel, do all those sort of things. So I got in this mindset that I wanted to be in startups, tech startups. So I taught myself how to code. I basically locked myself in my basement for 2 months and taught myself how to become a web developer.
Wow.
That was a whole endeavor. But basically I went through that, got my first job at a blockchain startup based out of Chicago. Started working for them and I was like, cool, what am I getting paid? And they're like, oh no, this is an early phase startup. You don't make money. You get equity, right? Which means you get nothing.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, well, that's not ideal. I was like, this is taking all of my time now. I no longer have time to do the other side hustles I was doing. I need money from somewhere. And I was like, real estate, rental properties. That's a passive income thing that's talked about in different books.
Sure.
I'd been listening to Bigger Pockets and those sort of things. So it was familiar. And I was like, I need some rental properties. So how do I find some? And I was like, well, they always talk about finding fixer-uppers, doing all this work. I was like, I don't want that. I want easy real estate. And in the neighborhood that we lived in, there was a new development going up. It's little single-family homes. And I kind of met the builder through like a friend of a friend. And I said like, oh, what are those houses selling for? So 200 grand a piece. And I was like, that's great. I can afford those if I liquidate my 401k. And I was like, I'll pay like 20% in penalties. I was like, but they don't make, passive income from these rentals. So I liquidated my 401k, I put down my down payment on these 2 turnkey rental properties. And I was like, did the math and I was like, perfect. So let's see, my monthly payment's gonna be $1,300. I can probably rent it for $1,600. I'm going to make $300 a month per property, right? It's easy. I wasn't accounting for any sort of vacancy, maintenance. I didn't account for the taxes properly. Basically, accounted for nothing.
I love this.
So I basically just bought these houses. I remember I bought them, closed on them, and I like post them up on Zillow. I'm going to get tenants. 2 months basically go by and I don't have any tenants.
No kidding.
And I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
What have I done? Now I'm like, do I sell the houses? Like I have to drop my rent. I have to sort of figure this whole thing out. And then I actually ended up getting very lucky because what happened is a state group that happened to be driving through the neighborhood or something, they saw that the houses were available on Zillow. They called me and they're like, hey, we are with this group that we do state-sponsored housing for mentally disabled adults. So they were like, kind of like lower functioning people. Usually a lot of them are wheelchair bound. They have full-time care. It's like they're not like, drug addicts or anything crazy. It's an A-class neighborhood. Like we need homes for these people that are wheelchair accessible. They're both ranchers that check their box. And like, we will pay you premium rent if you'll rent to us, and we'll do it on a 3-year lease. And they said a 3-year lease with the option to adjust. And I was like, well, that's great. How about for $2,000 a month? They said, done. I was like, awesome. So right there, I started making actual money out of just pure luck,
right?
Because I was in that position to do so.
Yeah, I love. So there's parts of your story here, right, that I love. Yeah. You're so countercultural, and I freaking love it. My working definition right now for entrepreneurship is defiance.
Yeah.
So anyone would say to you, you don't liquidate your 401k, you're going to pay too much in penalties, you're going to lose money. Correct. You don't go to New Zealand for a month when you're, how are you going to support yourself? You're not making any money. You don't buy houses without doing this analysis or, doing more research or whatever, right? But you did all of this stuff, right? Because it felt like the right thing to do. And it was for you, the way in which you were able to achieve what you were trying to achieve, which is start to build passive income. You've mentioned luck a couple of times. I don't know. I know there's always luck involved, but the action you've taken feels like it creates these opportunities for you. You know, I always say this on the real estate side. Whenever somebody's like, how do you get started? It's like you buy. If you think for a second that you're going to plan out and underwrite a property so perfectly that it's going to do exactly what you say it's going to do on a piece of paper, once you buy the house, it's going to smack you in the mouth somewhere, somehow. Like you said, I didn't plan for this, that, the other. My first 2 burrs, I was off by half on the rehab cost. It was literally twice as much as I planned for. We're still standing, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the realization that you come back to is like one of my really good friends is actually my business partner. I remember when he was first dabbling in real estate before me, and I would ask him all these questions, and he would say, the worst thing that happens is you got to spend more money.
Yeah.
Realistically, especially in the real estate world, in the residential real estate world, it's relatively forgiving unless you are just completely negligent on something or you made a really bad decision. Yep. I mean, you're not going to lose everything. You might lose some money on a deal. You might lose some equity. But honestly, if you're able to hold it for the long term, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And so I always kind of had that mindset that what's the worst that could really happen?
Sure.
And that just sort of, helped get over that hump.
I love it. I love it. I mean, really, again, you don't want to go bankrupt or anything like that, but the worst that could happen is that, you have to have a reset. It sucks for a while, but you learn and grow. Not that you're aiming for that. I had this discussion the other night with a couple of guys. There's like a 24-year-old guy there who's here helping with the event, and he was asking about it. I'm like, dude, you're 20. Like, do whatever. Take every risk you possibly can. You can go bankrupt twice between now and 30 and still be a child, right? I mean, you're 31. Do you feel any different than when you were 22?
No, not at all.
When you're 22, you think 30 is adulthood. And it's like, 40's not either. I'll tell you right now. You hit 40, 43, 44, 45, you'll be amazed at how you feel no different than you do right now. It's crazy. So,
I mean, even my dad's in his, mid-70s. He's had a stroke.
Yeah.
He's had a most incredible life. I could do a whole podcast and just stuff that he's done. But even now he's like, he said that he doesn't feel any different than he did when he was in his 20s. It's just his body's older.
That's it. My mom says the same thing. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. She's 71 years old, right? She's like, I still don't want to know what I want to be. She doesn't feel like a 70-year-old other than physically. But yeah, mentally, emotionally, whatever, you're always going to be there. Yeah. And we might come back to your dad if we have time, because you just, that was very, you made my curiosity spike a little bit. All right. So, one thing, and maybe you mentioned it, but there's the distractions in the room are kind of getting to me here, but the tech startup you had equity in, you do have equity in that?
Oh, it went belly up. I got nothing out of it.
You got nothing, just experience.
Well, yeah, I got experience, and it was my first view actually into entrepreneurship and the value of networking.
Yeah. Because
we were early phase. Like, it was a lot of effort that went into growing it. We went to conferences, did all sort of things. And as I was connecting with people, it was eye-opening to sort of see what people were doing. It's like coming to a GoBundance event.
Yeah.
You start to see where people are finding their way, where they're making money, that sort of like drive to hustle and grind and get things done. That was my first true exposure to that on like a large scale.
Gotcha.
So that was really invaluable, even though I didn't make any monetary gain.
It's experience is just as valuable. What does it look like today, portfolio-wise? What are you doing? Kind of take me to present day with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So after I bought those properties, I decided to do a different path. I needed more money. So I burred a duplex shortly after that. That was late 2018. 2019, I was like, I got to start flipping houses. I need more money. I didn't have any money to flip houses with. So I basically partnered with a local investor that had money. I went and facilitated all the work. And, basically the definition of using other people's money, right? They funded the whole thing. I did the hustle. We split it 50-50. First house I flipped, I spent 4 months on the opposite end of town, driving back and forth, and 4 months doing it, and I made $4,200.
Wow!
So the biggest waste of time for monetary
$1,000
policy.
$1,000 a month.
Yeah, exactly. I guarantee you, I spent more on gas.
Yeah,
but that was the education in doing renovations and project planning that I'd never had before. So ones after that were successful through 2019. Bought a couple more rentals, and then in end of 2019. It was starting to reach a point where, with how aggressive I wanted to be with my buying, I recognized realtors weren't finding deals. Wholesalers were scraping all the profit. And I was like, I got to find deals myself. So again, I didn't really have a huge amount of money at this point. So I approached my business partner, who's also my best friend from college. He had a very high paying job. And I was like, hey, you want to invest? I want to invest. We should do this thing. I'll build the system basically to find our own opportunities. You help me fund it, and we'll just build this business, right? And our initial goal was to do, we wanted to buy 50 properties in 10 years. Okay. You're like, that sounds fine. So started it. COVID happened, ups and downs. 2020 was weird. Figured it out. Anyway, so as of right now, we have a full off-market wholesale flipping investment business. We've been operating it since early 2020, so about 2.5 years now. We have 10 employees. We're about to do our 100th transaction.
Wow. And that's a lot faster than 50 and 10 years.
A lot faster than 50 and 10 years. And our rental portfolio is sitting, I think, currently at 48 units.
Wow, man.
And by the time this comes out in June, some of the closings we have should be about 60 units.
Amazing.
Across a bunch of different portfolios. So yeah, so that's where our current business is, and we're operating in 5 different markets right now.
Is your friend still working?
He's still working at his W-2. By when this comes out, I'm not sure if he will be still. He's debating on leaving at some point.
Sure.
But he has a high-paying job where realistically he's in a position where he doesn't have a lot of daily responsibility.
Yeah.
So he's making good money, and he spends most of the time working on our stuff. So kind of no harm, no foul.
Yeah. Just ride it out as long as you can, I guess, right?
Exactly, yeah.
This is the business partner you have now is a college friend. The first business partner that you mentioned on the flip that you made $4,200 on was a local investor. So how did you talk about that? Because I think that's a block for some folks. Like, well, I'd love to, but I don't. And what you did was found the partner, right? You don't have money or you don't have experience or whatever. You found a partner with that. How did that come to be? How did that conversation happen? How did you propose it? Just walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, so it came to be honestly from connecting with them on Bigger Pockets first, just on the forums, and found out that they were local, and we met up at a local meetup. And, we just kind of hit it off really well. And it was one of those things that I think they could sense that I was hungry and I wanted to get things done. And we built some good trust. And it just came from that. Ultimately it came from my involvement in the community because I had been active in the meetups at that point. I had been actively bidding on projects, actively trying to do stuff. So when they came in and were looking for someone to help facilitate doing flips, there's people there that were willing to vouch for me because I'd been around. So I kind of had that brand, my personal brand established locally to sort of get that credibility. Even though I hadn't actually done many deals yet.
You were showing up.
I was showing up and people knew that I was hungry and that I was educated and willing to figure things out.
Is he or she still in the picture today in any of your business?
No, I actually haven't talked to them for a couple years. We had a flip that was active when COVID started that went kind of sideways, particularly because they panicked and we had to kind of panic sell it and we ended up losing some money that they were pretty sour about. But it ended on not the best terms, but it is what it is.
Sometimes that happens in partnerships. How did you structure that first partnership? Was it 50-50 on profit or what was it?
It was just 50-50. They basically took all the risk and then I did
all the work.
Most of the work. Yeah.
Now, did you physically do the work of the flow? Were you were you the general contractor for subcontractors?
Yeah, so I generaled most of the subs. I did do some work myself, especially when subs wouldn't show up or things would fall behind.
Yep.
So, things from hanging drywall, doing flooring, painting. Me and my wife, there was several weekends where we would be up there and we'd be looking at a YouTube video for how to install a shower insert.
I was going to ask, did you have any experience with any of this stuff?
No, none.
Yeah.
I literally never held a power tool. So I guess I'd use power tools lightly to do work on my own house.
Yeah.
But everything else is just school YouTube. And I was like, I don't know, I'll figure it out or I'll find someone to teach me.
Wow, man. Wow. You just go. How is your business partnership structured now? Is it the same thing, 50-50 on everything?
Yep. So we're 50-50.
Yeah.
And then how we structure our roles, I basically lead the sales acquisitions side of it and the dispositions on wholesale properties, on our wholesale deals. And then he manages the renovations, the project management, all that sort of stuff after we close, and he manages all of our rentals.
Gotcha. What is if you don't mind, without getting maybe too granular, but the crux of the system that you have, the system that that's a lot of transactions no matter where you are, especially in this market, 100 in a year essentially, right?
Yeah.
What is are you texting yellow letter campaigns? Is it some other kind of marketing that you're doing? Just give me kind of an insight into what you're doing.
Yeah, so it's kind of all the above. So in our different markets, we try and we test different things and we measure our KPIs very explicitly to sort of see what's working and what's not.
Yeah.
But the key thing, most people when they start marketing for deals, they focus on the marketing. And really what it comes down to is the data and the follow-up process.
Interesting.
Anyone can go and start marketing for properties. You can go hire a cold calling company right now for $2,000 a month and they'll call and you'll get leads coming into your system. So that barrier to entry is very low. Or say you want to go order some postcards, you can go and order, a bunch of postcards, send them to a list that you pulled off PropStream, whatever.
Yep.
And anyone can do that. But the reason that we do deals and a lot of people don't is because of how we analyze our data and how we follow up with different kinds of leads and different methods. So like we specifically target people that have, we stack our data. So we find people that have the most potential motivation to sell and we target them most heavily. But then what we really do is we spend time going into the back records of the different court and city systems that, so it's not necessarily publicly available yet. And we manually scrape things like people that are going to divorce court but don't have a filed divorce yet. People that are going to jail, like they're currently in court for some sort of felony or something like that.
Sure.
People that have a bankruptcy hearing, but they don't necessarily have a recorded bankruptcy yet. So we do that to try and get ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And that's all available, but you have to manually find it. Right.
So just to be clear, you send out 100 letters or text or whatever you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a combination of, and I know there's more than this, but you're going to be divorced. You're going to go to jail, and these people call you.
Exactly.
And they say, hey, I am about to go to jail, or we are going through a divorce.
Yeah, and we do our marketing kind of coy. Like we don't let them know that we know their situation. But it's always like,
hey, I see you're going to jail. Call me.
Yeah, right. It's always like, hey, we like your house in this neighborhood. It's in our buy box. We want to excel, and then they call us, and it's always kind of interesting conversation because they don't know that we know they're doing
right. I was going to ask you, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, so we play it off, very basically of like, oh yeah, tell us about the house, all sort of stuff, build that rapport with them, and then as you're getting to know them through the whole sales process, next thing you know, all their stuff's coming out. They're like, I gotta sell in the next 2 weeks. I'm going to jail. Like I need to be able to exit this before that happens, and that's where the opportunities come from. So.
Wow. How many touches does it take you typically to get a deal under contract?
Yeah, I need to recheck that this year because we've exploded over the last few months. But last time I checked it at the end of last year was about 17 touches.
17 touches. Is this you?
No, this is my staff.
What's your staff look like? Local people, VAs? What is this?
So we're a completely virtual company. And so there's me and my business partner. We have a sales manager. We have 3 acquisitions managers. We have a couple of VAs. And we had until recently a lead manager based out of Central America. He quit this week, actually. And he was basically the cold touch guy. So he would follow up with people that we hadn't talked to in a while and try to schedule them.
Are these salaried people? I mean, VAs are one thing, but the people that are doing acquisition, your acquisitions manager, your what was the other one? You have 3. Was it 3 acquisitions managers?
Yeah, we have 3 acquisitions managers that are all on commission.
Oh, and a sales manager you mentioned.
Yep, sales manager he's a salary plus a commission.
Yeah.
And then our dispositions manager who sells all of our wholesale stuff, he has a base salary plus a commission.
Interesting. Wow. So you're just blowing up, growing all of this stuff, which is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Now you go into podcasting.
Yeah.
Collecting keys. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've always found with real estate and media is it tends to be very fluffy. Like there's a lot of big wins. They'll be like, oh, here's like the 22-year-old that owns 1,000 units, things like that, aren't always relatable. And they sort of create this pipe dream sort of feel, which I don't feel is representative of the career, especially when you're doing off-market investment. So we just started our podcast to talk about what it's really like to run a business like we do. And also to talk about, the ups and downs, like how to scale the different marketing, like the crazy stories, because we have stories with sellers that like you wouldn't believe.
Sure.
We had a guy get kidnapped from a closing. We've had like old women like fight in houses that we're in, like, stuff that's just unreal. And
Jerry Springer,
honestly.
Yeah.
So we go into those sort of weeds and what to really expect and how to make it in a business that honestly I think is more of an emotionally and mentally taxing business than it is anything else, just because you're dealing with situations like it's a people business. It's no longer a real estate business. You're dealing with situations that you never thought you would have to deal with, especially if you're in a position that you're even thinking about investing in real estate. Typically, it's a different social class than you're used to.
True.
And the stuff that comes up is crazy. So we dive into a lot of that.
It's kind of the raw underbelly of what you do, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like our tagline, it's kind of a mouthful. We're still working on our brand, but we say we're the anti-real estate podcast.
I like that.
So we kind of lean on that a little bit and more just like the true nature of what
That's a great tagline, man. I wouldn't work too much on that. That's really good. I like that. I mean, it stands out, right? It's like anything. So that's great. It's great branding, great marketing.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. Well, we're running out of time, but let's talk about this. We spoke at the beginning of this that you and I chatted about a year ago, almost a year ago now, coming up on a year, about this coming into GoBundance. So tell me about your time in GoBundance. What's been great? All of that stuff. What's been maybe a struggle? Anything, whatever you want to share about your time in GoBundance.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing with GoBundance, kind of like I said about the convention stuff I would go to for when I was in that crypto startup, just the connections that you make and being around people that kind of get it.
Yeah.
Because that was the biggest thing that I found when I started to find success. I had the same group of friends when I was an engineer, through when I was making no money, through now where I'm making very good money. And as I crossed over that income threshold and I started pursuing, growing myself and trying to get to the next level just in life, all of a sudden you don't have the same relationships that you used to.
Yep.
And I mean, the big reason I joined GoBundance was to find that. And one of the things that I found that's so huge is how we're all the same, regardless of what's on our one sheets. Like at the core of it, right? Yeah. Like we're all kind of the same people. And
20 million and a million can get together and add value to each other.
Yeah,
right?
very easily, right? And not only that, but they give each other the benefit of the doubt that they're expecting there to be value.
That's a great point.
And I think it's the same mindset, same kind of individuals, and it's been completely invaluable. But,
amazing. How about this event at Miami? Did you have an intention for the time here, or like what is this? What do you like to do at these events? This is your second one, I think you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
In Park City here, but just kind of give me some takeaways on the event so far, or what you intend to do at this event.
Yeah, so I went to Park City as well, and one of my intents for coming to this one was to sort of meet more people that were outside of my geographic area.
Sure.
It's Park City, very close to where I live. A lot of people that were from there are from Colorado, California, places that are already very close. Didn't meet a whole lot of East Coast people.
Oh, gotcha.
So I was like, cool, let's go see what the other side of the tribe is doing. Decided to come out here.
I like it. All the way across, literally from one corner to the other, right? You go from the top corner of the nation to the bottom corner of the nation.
Yeah.
But like you said, it is, see, this is something we talked about before, and I love this perspective. Like a lot of people would, maybe in regular life would be like, man, what a day long flights or whatever. The way you said it was, man, I left my house and 8 hours later I'm in Miami.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like the fact that we can even do that in society is unbelievable.
That's a great perspective. I love the mindset. Everything that you do, man, the action you take, the drive you have, the sort of like, hey, this is what feels right to do right now. I'm going to go do it. And it's working for you. It works out for you. I think more people need to do that. So
yeah, appreciate it.
Where do people find more about you, find out more about you? Is there a social handle, a website, anything you want to share?
Yeah. So, you can find me directly on Instagram's the best. It's at Mike_invest. You can find our podcast, Collecting Keys Podcast. Go follow us there. And if you're interested in any sort of off-market real estate, check out our podcast for sure. You can get it anywhere that you listen to podcasts. And then something that we've actually been working on over the last little bit is we have a little mastermind that we started. It's called the Instant Investor Program.
I love it.
And basically what that is it's a DIY video program, and then it's a year-long membership to like our community. And our goal with that is to, again, get around the fluffy part of real estate. So you don't come in and like, this is how you create a brand, this is how you do all sort of stuff. Our goal is to have people be marketing and talking to sellers within the first 2 weeks. And they, get a carbon copy of our business, exactly what we do, all of our processes that we spent 2 years implementing. They can just go and jump into it, right? So they can just take it, copy it, start marketing, and they can be doing exactly what we're doing in a very short period of time. So yeah, that's instantinvestorprogram.com. People can go and check that out there, and they can schedule a call with me if they want. And then our most recent thing, so we had a lot of people that inquired about the Instant Investor Program after Park City.
Yeah.
And there was people that were like, I really want to do this, but I have my other business. I just want opportunities. I'd like, can we partner up? Can we do these things in our own market? And they wanted us basically to market for them. And it got really messy. People wanting to buy rentals, do all this sort of stuff. So we actually launched what I would call like our Platinum Instant Investor Program, which we're calling Done For You Deals. So doneforyoudeals.net, you can find this. And basically it's a for-hire private wholesale business.
Wow.
So they go and they pay us like for our services, $5,000 a month, basically is what our fee is. And then they cover their own marketing, but then we run the marketing, the sales, the acquisitions, everything. And, they basically can sit back, run their own business. And then as we get contracts, we come to them and say, here you go. Here's your contract. Would you like to buy this off-market property that we got for you?
Unbelievable.
And they can capitalize from there. So,
jeez. All right. We have to chat about something after this, but no, this is incredible, man. Thanks for being on here. It's great seeing you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
All right, cool.